Excuse the darkness, but I feel a lot better talking outside when I'm underneath all these stars. Let me explain why. Let's just say one day you're cleaning your house, getting things ready to sell because you need to make a lot of money, right? And all of a sudden you wake up and your mind tells you, hey man, you know everything. And your body's like, that can't be true. That's not what I've been doing my entire life. I've been learning. And then your mind responds, go, yeah, you're gonna have to forget everything you know in order to understand this. And I'm just like, well, that's gonna be hard. Mine's like, don't worry about it. Just follow me and I got you. Did not know what I was getting myself into. But my first instinct as a human was, something just told me I know everything. I don't know who that was. Who was it? And then you wake back up and it repeats. Now, see, this is strange in itself, because the entire time that you're watching this video, you're just standing there like, what is going on, as you're talking to your mind, right? And then you watch it again and you watch yourself listening to your mind. You replay the whole thing and you get to where you are and it's like, what just happened? And then it repeats. And then you see yourself ask that question, what just happened? And you're sitting there and you're pausing and replaying it over and over. And then you realize, maybe I should ask a different question. And then you ask yourself, well, you get to thinking. But again, human nature, before my mind decided it wanted to tell me everything, would have picked a bunch of different roads, right? And as I'm struggling right now to recall, because I'm looking at that loop, what was the exact next question? Maybe it's not time for that one, but I know I pondered a while. This is where I'm at now. I recall now. I pondered a while. I believe I told my brain I don't know what question to ask because I'm having a hard time processing this information. And then my brain was like, what do you know? I was like, I know quite a few different things. And then my brain was like, what do you like? And I spat out some random things. It's just like, that's not enough information, sir. Here, let me show you a bunch of things and we're just gonna pick out which ones you like. The next thing I know, I wake up, I'm cleaning my house again. But this time I had this tremendous fucking headache and no recollection of anything except that I was in the middle of cleaning my house. It felt like I blacked out. So I continued cleaning my house, and as I'm cleaning my house, as always, I'm in a very zoned state, focused on getting my cleaning done. I'm not worried about what's going on around me. I just want to get this stuff clean because I don't want to think about anything, right? Sure, I might get high, get baked, just to release some tension and make sure my mind is absolutely clear. But as I got to cleaning, and by the way, I'm watching this as I'm speaking this, as I got to cleaning, I noticed a feeling that a lot of shit was different in the house. I noticed that there was a lot more debris. Didn't pay any mind of it. I just thought maybe, hey, maybe I might have zoned out too hard in that thought or what. But then I start looking at things. I start seeing these memories I've never seen before. And then I ask the question, what the hell is going on? And then there it goes again. It's like, oh, you're awake. You're back. Let's continue. Now, that was 2 years ago of listening to this voice and watching and following this trail of breadcrumbs. And just skipping a lot of details in between right now because, man, that feels like so long ago. If you think of where my brain is starting every morning, it's starting at that wake up moment, and then I wait, and it's like, all right, that is where your soul was last night. Sure, you don't see all the stories right now because things aren't technically ready yet. And as I sit here tonight, listening to the very statement I just said, it's like, if I wake up like this, it's kind of impossible to test right away, because I know that if something drastic happens, it's going to go back to that moment, and it's going to be a very long time before I wake up again, right? Why? Because this 2 years of information gathering has been extremely difficult. Basically, I use quantum science in my brain just from one statement, from me studying something, and then my brain going, ooh, right here. The subconscious records everything. I'm just like, you're right, you're recording all of this because you're the one that explains it to me. So I continue to go. And, you know, as time, as you guys know it, moved forward, time for me was moving in several different directions. There were times where I'd be on this journey with myself, and my brain would be like, hey, we're over here. Don't worry about your body. We got it. Just right now, you're not going to come over here. We're going to take this piece of energy so you can get everything. But technically, your body's here with us. You're going through this training that we're going through, so we can make all of these statements over here where your vessel is happen. And then statements like that will ring with you forever. But in gathering all that information, it takes a while to recall where all those pieces are. You got to make sure they align correctly. Otherwise, if you've got a special code that no one is going to understand, you can keep that code hidden forever and still tell them everything about how you attained that code. Why? Because one very special thing that I realized today, from when I woke up and my brain first told me that I know everything, it also told me that everyone would think I was crazy, and everyone is going to turn their back on me. And it's been 2 years, and I've tested myself every statement of that. And as I go into test another theory in this, a theory of subconscious creation, and I can explain it now because it's far ahead of the words and the thought process of everyone else that I am. It's like no matter where I land on the emotional spinning wheel of time, I'm always going to come out ahead because I put that work in and I deserve it. And no matter how much I do my best to attempt to share that information with individuals to see if they understand it, not all of them are going to understand it. They're going to have to feel it and go on the journey themselves. No matter what shortcuts I go find or what loopholes I can make in this subconscious mind of everyone's. There's still going to be some that just won't accept some things, and it's understandable. Why? Because a lot of what I endured in asking these questions is kind of terrible. And, you know, for the longest I looked for someone to kind of understand this pain before I found it myself. And again, I tell people my brain tells me I know everything, and I can see the things that I know through subconscious programming and the path that I've created. Am I 100% sure of who my vessel's quantum entangled piece is? I will honestly say no. Why? Because even if at the end of the road I will always be, each and every last one of you still have a stake in where that quantum piece lands. The beauty about the puzzle and the brain is it won't let me advance until I've learned the lesson that is holding me back. Why? Because that's how you create an infinite anchor in the subconscious mind to where you can go, hey, I'm creating a concept that all of you speak of, but none of you practice. So by stepping outside and doing the things that none of you are doing and listening to the voice that I identify as my brain at this moment in time, because let's just say I've spent 2 years in this, and the amount, I mean, I feel like eternity. And as I get these voices that come in, I go, I know the vibration that I can consistently be in, and I know the reality that it paints from that. And it's like, I can't force people to understand this. Why? Because I asked what omnipotence was like once, and it was rather tricky to understand at first. But now as I'm understanding it, you gotta understand that it's like, as I make this recording here, it's like my body knows it is in a place where it is connected and one with everything. And as I explained to my cousin earlier, is that when you're connected to everything like that, technically the person that's walking across the street, I wanted to explain to him that if everyone understood how this works, that me and him might see that person because we're in the same vibration. But say his partner might not see the person, depending on their level of vibration. Now, that's a hard theory to test in my relative vicinity, because being I hate that word, omniscient, you have to look at it from this perspective. No matter how you try to explain it to someone, everyone in your immediate reality is going to be present. It's like a class, right? And I realized that until all these lessons are learned and this subconscious level is achieved, that the picture I see in the future, this vessel is going to make it there in this form. Because, God, excuse me, my apologies. I'm sitting here depicting how to explain omniscience, and then I'm getting lost, and I keep getting interference also. That's one of the biggest things about it. Okay, sounds good. And see, even then, as I could feel the frustration because I'm getting lost in the sea, looking at how I had this painted. There's another universe and a person that comes in, and they bring in all their information, so that kind of distorts the data of where I was. And that takes a lot of practice. But let me focus and get back to the explanation and say my being's connected to everything, which means the world that this body was born into is going to be the world where that being is present at all times. That's the tricky part, because it then has to take and explain why there's been no contact from aliens, why we haven't done these beautiful things that we painted in these movies. And I came up with one explanation. The explanation I came up with was that I wouldn't have to cease existing in order to understand the vibration of everything. And I do hope as I'm going through this story and I'm watching it that I'm explaining it correctly and that it provides a decent understanding. But the problem was, my mind was going, hey, you're the vessel. I was like, that doesn't make sense from a conscious standpoint. It's like my mind was telling me and explaining it, but I was like, how can I be here and not exist in the same moment? And it kept telling me that there is no time in the omnipotent. And I was like, if there's no time, that means it's eternal. Then how am I still going to cease to exist so I can look at that? And it kept telling me, when you understand time, you will understand omniscience. Time's tricky. It's extremely tricky. Why? Because from my perspective, I have to take it from an omniscient viewpoint of where I discovered it in this vessel, or where my brain decided it wanted to tell me. I don't know exactly what linked it up so gradually, but I know there was a series of events. But to remain focused, I won't discuss them now. Time, how I first saw it when I was looking for a different concept outside of the normal human perspective. It was new. It was like my being was going, hey, I know you know all this shit, and I told you that you know all this shit, but fuck that shit again. This is how time works. And I was like, you can't tell me how time works and tell me it doesn't exist and keep calling it time. And that's why I'm disappearing again for 14 days, is to withdraw again from time. Because what I noticed in my vibration is that the way I saw time was nothing but frequency. Why? It's kind of like, I can't use a backstory or it won't create a new picture. It's nothing but frequency. It's like I see me walking through everything. It's like my vessel knows it's in this vessel. It doesn't feel like it would to a normal human, and you can't explain a feeling and body movements to people. It just doesn't work. So, back to it. Even horns and these moments of frequencies distract me from where I am, because I have to be in a fluid vibration. But I see time, it's a frequency. When I first started thinking about omniscience, I had to think about how a human vessel could contact and connect to everything and then prove it without saying too much until everyone could go, hey, I can't really argue with that. There wasn't enough science, but I noticed that the more my vibrational frequency was changing, the more I would see differently, and fine-tuning that. It's not just honing the body senses or following a spiritual path. Fine-tuning that is a journey in itself. It's lessons. And I say that people, they get to certain levels. Why? Because it's like energizing the brain through itself. That's another way that I could step out and look at everything and go, all right, let's put all this shit that happened and go, it had to happen. Why? Because they all equal me stepping out of it. Like, I wouldn't have came to that point of thinking if none of that happened. And then I go, all right, they're going to blame all of that shit on me. So before I start spilling beans and saying statements like I'm making now, I'm going to have to come up with ways to fucking tell them they're wrong without proving them they're wrong. Just giving them a story they couldn't refute. And man, just saying that after what normally people would call 2 years, that in itself is amazing, because the information I had to learn, the trips that I had to take, and what's really, whoa, I almost messed up. What's really difficult about the trips that I had to take is I couldn't really explain them. Why? Because I would just have to feel it and then wait for the update to be brought to my eyes. Why? Because of the way I saw time. Like, if nobody else saw time the way I saw it, they weren't going to be able to show it to me. I had to take everything that I saw from everyone else's concept of time and their words and math and start looking for patterns. What's the best way to do it? Simply because there was so much going on in my physical life and my vessel's life that my brain and my higher self, we were sitting there like, hey, we got to figure out a way to keep him from focusing on this, but still keep him focused on this so he can look for the updates. And I don't know. It's like the more they thought, the more the vessel learned that it could pull from the pool without even speaking with them, so it wasn't listening to them and see what they weren't seeing. Why? Because the vessel was the first one to see the difference. And then the three of us, yes, I said three of us, the three of us came up with a very good solution. Again, it's the subconscious that we were learning from what everyone was teaching records everything. It's like, why are we fighting between what we're seeing and arguing about it? It's like, why don't you do your job? You do your job, and the vessel does its job. And I was like, wait a minute, my job don't have a pay rate. Nobody pays somebody to go out here and learn all this shit so it can figure out what the hell it is. My vessel has an ego problem. Why? Because of that. But my higher self and my brain is like, sooner or later you're going to get over that and be humble and courteous and nice to people. And within this 2 years, that's exactly what the vessel did. In a sense, it took those meanings and literally connected them to what was used to keep it in a conditioned state in the first place. It was like, hey, you were born over here, and even though those stories were meant for you, you can't stand them because the way that the world that you were born in was set up to tell you that wasn't what was going on. And if you don't believe that's what's going on, then we're never going to solve this puzzle. And then the three of us sat there and thought. Now, what's really difficult about being aware of 3 omnipresent intellects is that you go, wait, if I can see my higher self, my omni self, if I can see it connecting to my mind, and then my mind wrapping me in a separate frequency as part of itself, so I could still bounce in and out of these realities, and then see myself doing that, I'm like, wait a minute, there's another vessel. And I was like, well, if those 3 are here, there's me. Now, granted, I tell you guys, this has been 2 years. The 25 minutes of what I'm explaining right now was like, I really can't explain it. Like, it took me 25 minutes to jump into the I can't explain it. I almost messed up my program. It took me 25 minutes to explain how I found out about 4 vessels. And even as I think about all the other details that are wrapped in discovering those 4, I go, yeah, it took 2 measured years. And within those 2 measured years, as more people started finding this journey in the subconscious on their own, the time started expanding. Like in the beginning, it was almost inverse. It was like I was sitting there and I was going crazy because I couldn't explain exactly to people because I hadn't seen none of this stuff going on. But the more I learned, the more I realized that if I just isolate it for a little bit and then went out and saw, then I could see updates. The more I saw people learn, the more time started stretching for me. It was like I was being spread out. And because of that, I was experiencing more in my mind than my vessel could move in this reality. I guess that's the best way I can explain it. No, I'm pretty sure that's the best way I can explain it. It's like even now, as I'm making sure that I say this correctly, it's like going back and watching yourself and then replaying it, but I haven't left this video. But it's watching all 4 of them communicate with each other from the stages they were in this journey. It's like I go back to that very first stage where I got to the maximum role model that I could create to step outside of everyone else. That old me still on my driver's license. Like I tell a lot of people that that guy died because, let's just put it this way, subconsciously that guy no longer exists. Why? Because he is so far in my past. You know, it's only been, let's go. Oh, let's see, the guy driver's license. Pause. Man, it's about 4 years ago-ish that guy was like, hey, something's not right. That guy went through a shit ton. That guy is the true legend, to be absolutely honest. Why? Because that guy got us to here. I miss that guy a lot sometimes, but he was able to work with what he had and did the best he could. That guy is tied through a tough string of memories in order to understand this puzzle. And I see that I'm about to get some vibrational interruption. And, you know, I hope I don't lose this moment. Yeah. We're going to talk to that guy I had that guy speak about how the rest of us was created at one point.